سودان معلش حكموك ناس الجيش، انت ما بتستاهل تكون كده. يا سودان معلش حكموك ناس الجيش، انت ما بتستاهل الحظ ده. يا سودان معلش حكموك ناس الجيش، انت ما بتستاهل تكون كده. يا سودان معلش حكموك ناس الجيش، انت ما بتستاهل الظلم ده. انت كنت زراعة الليلة فيك مجاعة، انت كنت زراعة الليلة فيك مجاعة. يا سودان من وين لوين الحالة دي حتم لمتين. يا سودان من وين لوين ديل حكامك سووا الشين. يا سودان الحب تلقاه، يا سودان الحب تلقاه، ويوما يا حبيب أولادك يرجعوا لك من الغربة. يا سودان الحب تلقاه، يا سودان الحب تلقاه، ويوما يا حبيب أولادك يرجعوا لك من الغربة. يا سودان معلش حكموك ناس الجيش، انت ما بتستاهل تكون كده. يا سودان معلش حكموك ناس الجيش، انت ما بتستاهل الظلم ده. انت كنت زراعة الليلة فيك مجاعة، انت كنت زراعة الليلة فيك مجاعة. يا سودان ما تبقى خراب، في حروبك ضاعوا شباب، يا عيونهم ماتوا مات عذاب، حيرانة تسأل عن أسباب. يا سودان الحب تلقاه، يا سودان الحب تلقاه، ويوما يا حبيب أولادك يرجعوا لك من الغربة. يا سودان الحب تلقاه، يا سودان الحب تلقاه، ويوما يا حبيب أولادك يرجعوا لك من الغربة. يا سودان الحب تلقاه، يا سودان الحب تلقاه، ويوما يا حبيب أولادك يرجعوا لك من الغربة.
Aquaba, hello, greetings. Hope you are well today. Hope you are reaching your highest level, mental, physical, and spiritual strengthening. And if you're not there, that you're rapidly approaching it. We really want to welcome you to this week's episode of our Ancestors' Voices, weekly program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And we are especially excited, as always, for our topic today: want to travel to Africa. So we're doing this virtually today. And then here in Sacramento, for those of you that are local, we're having an in-person program on the same topic tomorrow. So if you're here locally, you should definitely attend tomorrow because we will have you'll have the opportunity to have a discussion, ask questions. It'll, obviously be a lot more intimate than an online live stream program. But either way, we're glad that you're here and glad you're here for this topic. We give honor today. I was spent all day yesterday engaging in anti-fascist work. Spent 7 hours. There was a indigenous Latino family festival here in this part of Sacramento I live in, South Sacramento, which is pretty much all colonized people that live over here on this side of town. And so they had the festival and they asked us to come out. And so myself and another young organizer in the APRP went, along with some of the other comrades from the white anarchist community. And we worked with the indigenous people to do security out there. And it basically meant 7 hours of me standing at my post watching out for ICE agents. And we had a plan in place in case they did show up. Fortunately, they did not. And then also Miss Dolores Huerta was there, who, if you don't know, was a key figure in the United Farm Workers founding and movement in the 60s here in California and in other states. And she in her 90s was there to speak. So I had the opportunity to bodyguard her, which was my second time actually doing that. And she said she remembered me. So that was nice. And just glad that nothing happened other than people having a very positive community event. There were people of all nationalities there, as there should be. And we did what we needed to do to keep people safe. So this is the work that we do. This is this is my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So glad you're here for this topic. Traveling to Africa is a big part of it. So we give honor and respect to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. And what I just told you that I did yesterday is one of the many ways that we do that. We go and pay our respect to them. And all day yesterday, people were thanking me. We thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping us safe. The young high school students brought me a plate of food that had food that I could actually eat on it. I mean, it was just so nice, so wonderful. And I just kept telling everybody it's our honor and our privilege to be here. We owe you all so much. We understand history. We would not, most of us would have never made it through slavery without the indigenous people. Quiet as that's kept, and as much information as misinformation as there is out here, that is unquestionably true. So we give honor and respect to them, and we stand with them, sit with them, lie with them, whatever way they need us to participate in their struggle for justice and forward liberation. And of course, doing that work with them is the best way to honor our African ancestors. When someone asked me yesterday, it's just so wonderful that you're here doing this. Why would you all, how did you all get this understanding? I'm like, well, we're proud Africans. We know our history. We know exactly who we are. And when you get to the place in life where you understand who you are, then you don't have to disrespect other people. You don't have to dismiss other people. You don't have to disparage other. In fact, you want to encourage the development of all people. I love to see people who are down come up because I have a strong and positive sense of who I am. I don't have to be like that dead fascist and make millions disparaging people. I don't have to live my life like that. So this is why what we mean when we say honor our ancestors. And no, I'm not going to say the dead fascists, and they're not even worth it. piece of scum. I'm sorry if you that offends you. You're in the wrong place. Wrong place. We don't glorify our enemies. We don't honor our enemies here. So glad that you're here for this program. And just to start, we start as we always do. Our Ancestors' Voices is sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, AAPRP. And the APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass, Pan African political party with its base in Africa, our national home. And our objective is Pan Africanism, which we define correctly as one unified socialist Africa. We have the FEPON conference coming up in Africa. We're raising money to send organizers from all over the world to that international gathering of revolutionary Pan Africanists. And we'll talk more about that at the end of this program. But we are moving forward to achieve our objective, you all. You don't see it on CNN and CIA networks, so a lot of you don't think it's happening, but that's to your detriment. It's definitely happening. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, which is the cover is displayed on this page. We operate under a scientific strategy, and things like FIPON and these things that are happening to unite our people worldwide are a part of that strategy. I mean, imagine that an international conference which will have thousands of participants of youth. It's youth. It's not old people like me. It's youth that are coming together in Africa from all over the African world, and most of you will know nothing about it, and you think that you're free and have democracy and have information. You will know nothing about that. I mean, that's historic. And this is not even the first one. It happened last year. So we're proud to be a part of that and to have our youth organizers participate in it. And our Ancestors' Voices is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu, and my daughter, the newly anointed Dr. Shakura Umi. And to get us started, as we do each week, I'll hand it over to Shakura.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Greetings, everyone. Hello, hello. So I have been privileged to say that I have been home twice already. Once when I was 4 years old, and once again when I was 16. And I really can't tell you how much of an impact those trips had on me. I could try today. Um, but I think I'll just start by saying if you identify as being colonized, displaced, removed from your homeland, if your people don't control the means of how your land is used and distributed and manipulated, we strongly would recommend that you do everything you can to go back home, wherever that is for you, as soon as you can. Because the kind of shift that your brain will have when your plane or your boat or however you're getting back, when it officially touches your indigenous soil, I don't think we have enough time for me to, try to explain to you what kind of a mesmerizing sensation that was. I'm very thankful that my parents were able to record a lot of the memories that I now store in my brain. Because, of course, when I was 4, we went to Accra, Ghana, and I don't remember anything except having those visual images to trigger what I think is already stored in my memory. But definitely as a 16-year-old, I remember quite a bit going to Dakar, Senegal. Um, and I just think that it's so important, especially because we talk so much about identity. We talk so much about pride of self. We talk so much about knowing who you are. We talk so much about resisting the teachings of colonization, resisting the teachings of systemic oppression, whether it's white supremacy, whether it's imperialism, whether it's racism. Um, and I think that that is all by design. The oppressor has always wanted to keep us from knowing the truth. And a lot of times, the truth starts where the problem first occurred, right? Like that's where the truth often lies. But instead, it's intentional to get people to look in other avenues and to investigate other circumstances and instances, when in actuality, that's where the lies come from. And now the oppressor is feeling good because they have continued to prevent you from really having access to what really happened. And if you don't have access to what really happened, then you're not going to be able to have correct information for you to start to synthesize it, for you to start to critically analyze it, for you to start to ponder it, and for you to start to wonder, well, is that why all of these folks are struggling today? Because they're still not valued as significant, and they're not valued as significant because of X, Y, Z, and so on and so forth. So, yes, we are so proud to hopefully persuade you, but if nothing else, to enlighten you on the importance of why you should consider traveling to Africa. And I think we are speaking obviously to people who descend from the continent, but we also understand that, if you identify as indigenous, we hope that you can continue to reestablish what your land reclamation looks like, right? And so, this is a general conversation we're having, where really, like I said, if you identify as being colonized, we encourage you to go back to wherever you were taken from. And I mean physically for me, because my ancestors were taken, but your ancestors may have been taken, ideologically. Your ancestors may have been taken mentally or spiritually. So, in whatever capacity your folks were robbed, you should re identify with that. You should reconnect with that. And if it was all of the above, you should definitely go back so you can acknowledge all of the above all over again and get that going. But I think we start by trying to help people understand why you should consider going back home. And for us, this conversation is dedicated to Africans because we can speak very confidently on what the steps are if an African wants to go back home to the continent. And so, if you identify as being African descent and you're trying to understand more about who you are, in understanding about who you are, that means you have to understand what happened to your people. And if you're going to understand what happened to your people, then you need to understand just how much of an impact colonization, land ownership, exploitation of minerals, manipulation of minerals, resources, opportunities, how all of that translated into where we are today. And I think that in order to do that, it's going to be really key for you to reconnect with your culture, for you to travel back to Africa, so that you can hopefully start to put this on your bucket list, because there is such a revolutionizing, sensational spirit that one feels when they officially have a homecoming, if you understand what I'm saying, and can literally go back home and feel that sensation. That is probably one of the most revolutionary things a person can do, besides being in an organization that is working for justice. You are literally saying to the oppressor and to systemic oppression and institutionalized oppression, you are literally saying to those entities, I am not promoting the jargon that you are providing. I am refuting it, I am resisting it, and I am here because I understand that in order for me to find the truth, I need to start by looking inside of myself. And that also acknowledges that for a lot of us, we have to acknowledge that we really don't know who we are. And that's not really our fault per se. I think that in terms of us understanding how we got to that point, that is not our fault. But I think it continues to now be our fault, where we do have to take responsibility if we now acknowledge that we are here because our entire culture, our entire language, for some of us, was completely wiped out, and we were punished if we continued to practice our rituals and our routines that we had so knowingly had rooted in us from an indigeneity standpoint. We were punished, we were ostracized, we were murdered, we were killed. Like, there were different things that happened when we demonstrated still enforcing our values and our knowledge and our wisdom of who we were as a people. For some of us, our great, 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 great grandmothers ran left and got caught. And so those are the folks that I'm talking to right now. And so, like, in understanding that, the best way for you to kind of twist that around and start to really play with that is to start to fill in the gaps that have been so conveniently left out, right? And so, if you identify as being Black, we don't use that term, but if that's how you identify, maybe you also have had negative feelings about Africa. Maybe you are trying to be honest enough to acknowledge that, questioning the information on where you're getting it, the information about African history. Are you noticing that it's encompassed of stereotypes? Are you noticing that it has random opinions? And there's not really an independent study on your part to be able to really seriously kind of consider what has really happened. And I guess if that's the case, then how are you really able to separate the lies and the mistruths from the information that is available to you, from the random opinions and from the stereotypes? How are you able to separate that from what actually happened? And this is why we're in the position we're in today. If you're not able to think critically, then it would be really hard for you to be able to acknowledge where things went and for how they got there and what the impact was and who was impacted and why this person was impacted, which led to these groups of people being impacted, and so on and so forth. If you are African or African descent or not, traveling to Africa will help you understand a lot about how wealth exists today. And we are so happy to put that in there because a lot of the foundation for exchanging of resources, bartering, trading, assigning value to something. Africa is one of the richest continents in the world, one of the richest continents in the world, from gold to coltan to cacao to rubber. I mean, I'm missing so many other resources that I know are in my head, but now I can't think of them. But there's too many to name where there's just so many resources available. There's so much innovation and ingenuity and technological advances. This is literally a gold mine, literally, right? But not just gold, like there's so many other resources, cobalt and, copper and things like that. So I think that when we really start to think deeply about this, even if you're not African, it would still behoove you to study and to understand exactly how Africa is pivoted in the middle of how other um, Eurocentric and patriarchal and white supremacist organizations and entities of people, how they have benefited from stealing from Africa, and in some cases, then taking those resources to Palestine or to other parts of South America or to other parts of the world, and then exploiting those resources in a different way, which means those folks that are with that land may also be exploited in the turn of that as well. And of course, I'm giving the example about, the diamonds that come from Africa and how they are cleaned in Palestine. And so in both cases, you see how African people are not receiving any of the financial gain from those diamonds being picked, right, and mined. And then, of course, if they're cleaned on Palestinian land, why would Palestinian people benefit from the funding that comes from that, from the profit that comes from cleaning those diamonds? So those are just some examples of how we can start to see what that looks like. And so even if you're not African, it would still benefit you to go to Africa. It would still benefit you to understand how Africa is a central point for a lot of how we can explain the exploitation that's happening today around the world. And we also understand that, this is studying Africa and studying how these resources have been stolen, studying how these people have been abducted, understands or explains to us, I should say, how wealth exists today, whether it's Europe, the US, right? But not in Africa, as I pointed out, in other parts of the Americas, because it will be obvious once you land in Africa where the wealth of the West actually comes from. I would even give the example of how in Niger, they have so many resources to power their electricity from a very strong standpoint, but yet they have rolling blackouts more consistently and more constantly than you can even think that would be necessary for a person to be able to live with success. I'm sure Baba Ajamu can recite the statistic because I don't have it off the top of my head, but we have presented on that very same topic before. And I'm saying this to say, case in point, the electrical resources, the towers, the ingenuity and the innovation that comes from Niger is also powered, is also used to power the Eiffel Tower. How many times have you heard that the Eiffel Tower has not had electricity? Never. You've never heard that. But yet, I just said to you that people in Niger who need to cook, they need to clean, they need to raise their children, they need to have healthy mental health. They need to be able to have self-esteem and be able to do what they need to do to bring money in, to feed their families, to feed themselves, to feed their neighbors and their communities. They don't even have consistent electricity to do what they need to do, but yet there's somehow resources that are extrapolated out of Niger and used to power an entire tower in Paris. So this is what we're talking about, you all. And when we think about Africa today, it is actually the national home to 2.5 billion Africans living in and outside of Africa, meaning outside of Africa as in the diaspora. And as a result of centuries of colonization and slavery, which has primarily been responsible for building up Western capital. And so when we tie all of this together, it's very clear that Africa is the root and the foundation for why we should be going back to the root and the foundation if we are truly to understand how we can start to make a difference with what that looks like. Next slide, please. And there's different ways that we can start to make a difference. I think it's so important for us to do the research to know what it is the steps are that one would need to take if they are interested in traveling to Africa. You're not going to be able to execute a successful plan of leaving the US if you don't know what is all to be expected and if you don't do the necessary planning ahead of time, managing the deadlines, making sure that you plan ahead and give yourself time to apply for the necessary applications and to schedule the vaccine appointments and all the things. This is going to be really critical and really crucial. So this topic is beyond important because this is not something that you can just, wake up and say, I'm going to do. You need to have a plan on how you're going to do it so that you can execute it successfully. And, we start with acknowledging that you would first, get started by applying for a passport if you don't already have one. That process by itself can be very time consuming. And if you wait to the last minute, you may not be able to control the passport not getting to you in time. So we strongly recommend that if you are getting your passport in the US, you need to start by going to the US Department of State Bureau or Consular Affairs at travel.state.gov. The cost for a US passport is 120 US dollars, USD dollars, and you will need a certified copy of your birth certificate, which you would get from the county office in the county where you were born. You will need a passport picture, which you can get taken at Kinko's or a FedEx office or even some post offices. And you will need to send your completed application, so your pictures, your birth certificate, and a payment into the U.S. Department of State. I will say that the process usually takes between 6 to 8 weeks, but I know that that can vary depending on how many applications they have for review. So this is why we're encouraging you to do it sooner, not later. If your trip is planned in June, then you don't want to start on this in January. We would recommend starting earlier because, as we said, there could be delays, especially with certain political policies that are coming out. And also, different folks in office could slow down that process for you. So we strongly recommend you do it as early as possible. Right now, I am planning some trips to leave the country this year. But last year, I wasn't planning to go anywhere. And unfortunately, I let my passport expire. And the process for getting it renewed easily took about, I'm trying to make sure I don't lie to you right now, but I feel like it was at least like between 4 to 5 months. It was definitely longer than, weeks. And I didn't have anywhere to go. So that was okay for me. But I wanted to make sure that I had it when it was time for me to start going places. Right. And I also think that, you should be prepared to have different forms of payment. And so what I mean by that is when you were paying for your passport, correct me if I'm wrong, Baba Ajamu, but I believe you can only pay like by check, like an actual check from a checkbook, or like maybe debit card, but I feel like debit card may not be correct. So like do that kind of research ahead of time. So when you get there, you have the correct form of payment. You know exactly how much the application is going to cost, and you have the correct amount way to pay so that they can collect your payment and there won't be any issues. The picture now, you can't be showing your teeth, I believe. So do that kind of research. If you're going to get the pictures taken at Kinko's or whatever, they should be able to tell you what is required for the picture, but just make sure that you research everything. You're not supposed to be wearing glasses. You can't have a hat. Like research all of that, because if you send in a picture that's incorrect, it's going to delay your application. Your application is going to either be canceled, rejected, denied, but it's going to get sent back to you, and that's going to extend your time. And you don't want to have more time invested when you need to be doing what you need to be doing. So go through the necessary channels to pay very close attention to the details. Pay very close attention to the details. Make sure that things are accurate. There's even a specific measurement of the picture, like the height versus the width. So research that. Research that. Make sure you have it on point so that there's no reason that this will be an issue at all for you. And so, if you have all of that lined up, if you have everything where it's supposed to be, if you need to make an appointment at the post office, do the research so that you can be organized to do that. We would hate for you to show up at a post office ready to take your pictures, and that post office's camera doesn't work. So now you got to drive all the way across town to the other post office. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And some of that is capitalism, and you can't predict it or control it. But some of it you can, because you're already used to the BS that you got to deal with every single day, right? So do the research. Make sure that you're aware of those kind of things so that you can plan ahead. Do the best you can to try to be as organized as you can. And in doing that, you can start to prepare yourself for this amazing opportunity that's about to take place. But just understand, like, you have to cross these T's and dot these I's. Otherwise, it is not going to fare well for you. And in doing that, make sure that you continue to pay attention to what's happening around you, excuse me, because somebody might depend on you to get this information one day, because they might be planning to go to Africa next year, and they might come up to you and ask you what was the process like. So in doing that, you can help inform someone else, and each one teach one. And also, I'll just say before I pass it back to Baba Ajamu, we also just want to say, and I'm sure he will speak to this too, but when you do get a chance to go home to the motherland, please do the best that you can to try to leave your capitalist values here in the US. Do your best not to take those on the plane with you when you get there, because there we don't need more of that there. A, B, we want you to understand that you should be going to Africa with the intention to do some work so that you can improve the conditions there. You should be taking resources, whether it's band-aids or pads or pencils. You should be investing what kind of old cell phones you don't need anymore. But if they can have a SIM card put into them, you can donate them to the local organizational chapter offices there, because comrades can't get devices there as easily as we can here. Old laptops that you can't use anymore, you should be bringing those in your suitcase, donating them to the comrades. And you shouldn't be looking at it like, I'm going to Africa so I can have this vacation. Sure, you can go to the beach, you can go to the Nkrumah Museum and have a good time, but you should have the intention of, what can you be bringing to this space to improve the conditions for the masses of people? That is the intention that I have going to Cuba this year and going to Ghana next year. It's not going to help if we're just going to see what we can get out of it. You're going to have to change your frame of mind, because that's not enough. You need to be contributing too. Otherwise, you're just as much a part of the problem as you expecting somebody to be a part of the solution. So have a different perspective and be thinking about what you can do. It's always amazing to me when I think about how easily it is for school supplies to be accessible to students here in the US versus in other parts of the world. Students would literally give anything to have a lead pencil. I don't even mean a mechanical pencil. I mean an old school pencil that you have to sharpen with the pencil sharpener. They would give anything to have that. And that is a lasting memory that I have. When we went to Senegal, is I was tasked with bringing school supplies from both my dad and my mom, and they gave me a ton of pencils to put in my suitcase. And I was so humbled when we took them to the school, and the students ran up to me and grabbed them and they hugged me. And I didn't speak the same language as them, but you could tell they were so excited. And they started writing things down as soon as they got the pencil from me. I will never forget that. Never will I forget that. So these are the things. This is the humility we're talking about, you all. Ashe.
Ashe, obrigada, asante sana, Madasi, thank you very much. Before I get into my section, just a couple of things. First, Shakura, Africa isn't one of the richest land bases in the world. It is without question, without question, without question, the richest land base in the world. In fact, that needs to be clear. We cannot, there can be no confusion about this, that Africa has more resources than the rest of the world combined. So it's not one. It is by far the most resource rich land base on the planet Earth. And that is the reason why Africa's in the situation it's in today. And then the next thing is in terms of payment, I think the only way that you could use a debit or credit card is if you go into the Department of State office. The challenge there is that those offices don't exist everywhere. They only exist in some major metropoles. Like I think here in California, for example, where we are, there is an office in San Francisco and there's one in Los Angeles, and there isn't one anywhere else. Like you can't do it in Sacramento or Fresno or San Diego. You have to go to those two offices, and that's the same way across the country. And in some of the Midwestern states, for example, they don't have a single office anywhere in that state. That's why so few people in this country have passports to begin with. So it's just important to remember, just to understand those basic. There was one other thing I was going to say, but I can't remember now. So I'll try to remember and come back to it. But where the first question after you get your passport is, where do you want to go? Where to go in Africa? And of course, anywhere in Africa is great, but it is worth your time and effort to think through what makes it, what destination makes the most sense for you, right? And here is a 2003 photo of myself and Shakura at 16, as she mentioned. We were in Senegal with our AAPRP comrades over there, Sister Yamba, who was from Guinea, who was in Senegal, and our recently departed brother Sekou Mbaki, who just made his physical transition last month. So we were over there doing a lot of very positive AAPRP work in, I think it was July and August of 2003. But in terms of where to go in Africa, like I said, anywhere is great. But I think if you don't speak other languages other than English, it'll make your trip a lot easier, at least your first time, if you choose a place where English is spoken as opposed to not spoken. And I'm saying that, myself, I've lost track of how many times I've been to Africa. I know it's double digits. I think it's around 13, 14 times. Going again in a few months. I'm not sure. But I've learned that over the years because I've been to many places where English is spoken and many places where nobody speaks English. And of course, we belong to an organization. So we have comrades. So we have people who can interpret for us, but everybody is not in that situation. So if you're going on your own, strongly recommended if you only speak English, you consider choosing a place where English is widely spoken. And there are a number of places like that throughout Africa. Ghana, of course, is a very popular destination. English is spoken. And, these places, English is spoken because the British colonized these areas. Ghana, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, etc. All of these countries, you can everybody speaks English. So that makes it that much easier. If you speak French, then your options are wider, of course. You can go to Mali or Burkina Faso, Senegal, Guinea, Cameroons, etc. If you speak Portuguese, they're even broader. You can go to Guinea-Bissau, Angola, Mozambique. So consider that. I'm not saying don't go, because the second time I went to Africa, I went to a non-English speaking country. So don't go. don't base your decision on that, but it's just something, these are just things for you to consider. And then understand that in the overwhelming majority of countries in Africa, you will need a visa. And what a visa is different from a passport. A passport is a document that allows you to travel internationally. You cannot travel internationally without a passport. A visa is a document that allows you specific entry into a country. So you have to understand that the countries have different requirements to issue you a visa. And the visa is good for a certain period of time. A US passport is good for 10 years. A visa is generally, if you're traveling somewhere and you're not planning to try to stay there, then typically you want to get the 90-day visa. It gives you, you can get it, you can pay more and get in and out privileges if you plan to travel to different places, but that's mostly what people do. And you have to, it used to be a time where the embassies in Africa were so disorganized, it was not recommended that you send them your passport because a lot of people never got them back. But that's changed dramatically as these countries have come to understand the benefit of having Africans in America travel to their countries and bring money to spend in their economies. So the embassies have gotten much better organized. And so now you can send your passport to the embassy of the country you're traveling to, like the Ghanaian embassy, for example, and they'll send it back to you within a week, stamped. You pay a fee, it's usually about 60 US dollars, and they'll send it to you stamped, the 90-day visa, which will allow you to enter the country. Now, a lot of people don't do that and they just fly to Ghana and they go to customs there. I don't recommend you do it that way. You can do it that way. And I have done it that way, particularly in Guinea-Bissau, where we have tons and tons of comrades who handled all of that for us in the APRP and the PAIGC. But again, if you're traveling alone, the last thing you're going to want to do if it's your first trip, you had a 15, 20-hour flight, you're exhausted, and then now you got to stand in line in customs. That's not what you're going to want to do. So you want to get your visa up front, and then that way you can avoid any unexpected challenges. Send it to the embassy. You can go to like for Ghana example, you can go to their embassy website. They give you all the instructions and what you need to do. You have to get additional pictures the same way. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to say. Most of the places here, like post offices, Kinko's, that do pictures, they're regulated to do that. So they know how to tell you what needs to be in the picture, right? If you have questions, you ask them. They have to be accountable to that. They can't just say, "Well, I don't know." They're regulated by the government because the government accepts their pictures, right, as official passport and visa pictures. So they have to know what they're doing. But Shakur is right. You should research it so you're not, in case you get someone who has a bad day or gets confused or whatever, you're not just not knowing what needs to happen. So you have to get the visa. Typically the requirement for the visa beyond the fee is going to be again, knowing the time, usually that's 90 days. And then they want vaccinations. They're not backwards like this cesspool United Snakes of America. They want to know that you're vaccinated. They don't have any debates about that like idiotic people do here in this country. And if you're one of those people, I'm calling you out because that's crazy as hell. So they don't have that problem. They require vaccinations. You have to have pretty much everywhere in Africa a yellow fever shot. And so you have to get that shot. So if you don't want to get the shot, you're not going to Africa. You're not pretty much not going anywhere. Okay, if you don't want to do that. So, that's just something you have to decide. Obviously, I wouldn't limit my life over some belief that is not even grounded in any study you've done. I have people all the time who put poison in their body with alcohol and all kind of other bad food and nonsense, try to talk to me about health and inoculate. Get out of my face with that. I don't want to hear that. You are not qualified to talk to me on that subject. But the visa, that's what you have to do to get it. The only countries in Africa where you will not need a visa are, of course, the countries that still contain large populations of European colonizers, like Azania or what you call South Africa, Zimbabwe. They don't require that because they want the white people to have free passage just with a passport to travel. But everywhere else, you need a visa. You don't need they don't need a visa from the white people in South Africa, don't need a visa to come here. So this country can't require a visa to go there. So that's how that works. You should consider establishing relationships with organizations that have footprints throughout Africa, like the APRP. We're all over the continent. So we can connect you with people that can help you in your travel. That's the benefit of having an organization. We don't have that problem. Everywhere we try, like we're going to Azania in January, we're going to connect with comrades there. We're not just going as individuals from the US, tourists. I don't travel like that. All the trips I've made to Africa were to do work for the APRP. I've never gone to Africa. All those times I've gone just without doing work, without having an assignment there for the APRP. Gambia, Ghana, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Tanzania. I can't even remember all the some of them multiple times. There are many more. I just can't think right now. But every time there was an assignment, you all. That's my point. There was work that was to be done. And that way you can connect with people who can help you get taxis, negotiate that, find a decent place to stay, understand all of those things and help you with the currency transfer. So that's important. And oh, that's the big thing I want to say is everything we're talking to you about today, we're revolutionaries, you all. We're not doing this for business purposes. We're not trying to make money off of you. We're trying to get our people home and get people home who want to learn about Africa. So, everything we're telling you here will help you. We'll help you get your passport. We'll help you get a visa. We'll walk you through the processes. We'll do that. That's what we do because that's the kind of people we are. We're not selfish, only concerned about ourselves type people like most of the people you know, or maybe even you. I don't know. But reach out to us after this program and we'll help you do that. Another thing about the accommodations, activities, etc., is that understand this. If you travel to Africa as a tourist, that's how you'll be perceived. So don't do that. Don't go over there as a 100% tourist and then people perceive you as a tourist, treat you like a tourist, and then come back here like they don't like us over there. No, they don't like you. Okay, I've never had that problem. Anytime I've traveled, because I don't travel to Africa as a damn tourist. I travel as an African returning home to do work to liberate Africa. So I'm not even in the tourist areas. I'm not even doing that. So you got to understand that because if you don't, you'll fall into that. And don't come over here spreading those lies and that nonsense. If a tourist bus pulled up in front of your house and people got out in front of your house and you came out your house and they were taking pictures of you, how would you look at them? You would look at them like, get the hell out of here. Well, of course, then what do you expect? That's how you came there. So that's how people perceive you and that's how they treat you, as they should. So travel requirements, because there are a number of requirements, and this picture is January of 2023 when we had our All African People's Revolutionary Party Congress in Guinea-Bissau, and the arrow at the top is me standing right under the huge picture of our co-founder Amilcar Cabral and the founder of the PAIGC. I belong to both organizations, and we had Africans there from all over the African world who participated in our party Congress. But the first requirement is, like Shakura talked about, having a healthy respect for Africa and what she's been through. Understanding that because of colonialism, things are going to be slower. There was brain drain. There's brain drain in Africa. There's very few people with these skills, this education to facilitate a country. That's by design, so that we would remain dependent upon European and U.S. colonialism and neocolonialism. So understand that. Be patient. Don't go over there with this backward ass U.S. attitude. Stay here if you can't develop patience with our people. They're trying the best they can with what they have to work with. And don't look at Africa as a means to an end, like how you can go there and figure out how to make money. Stay your black ass or whatever color ass you have here if that's your mentality. Don't go over there with that. I was over there years ago and this coon was over there. He come in there. I'm sitting there talking to all these Africans from all over the continent. We're having a wonderful conversation in the lobby of the place where I was staying, and he bring his ass in there talking about I need a room with hot water with a white boy with him. I need a room with hot water and I need to be comfortable. And I said, shut up. And he looked over and I said, get out of here. You don't come in here talking to them like that. He's like, oh, you're from the US? I'm like, that's not the point. I don't give a damn. Get the hell out of here. I said, I didn't come over here to hear that nonsense. Oh, I didn't mean any disrespect. You and then everybody, you're very disrespectful. I'm like, you come over here with respect because I don't want to have to deal with the fallout of idiots like you. That's what I told them. I tell them that every time. So don't have that attitude. And then, as I mentioned, the yellow fever shot is a necessity. If you're over 60, you could get a letter because there are health challenges that increase dramatically if you're 60 and over. So you can get a letter um, dismissing you from having the yellow fever shot, and that typically will work. But if you're under 60, you need to get the shot, or you just need to consider something else. I mean, not going, like staying here and staying in this ignorant cesspool. I don't know who would choose that in their right mind, but some of y'all are just really a piece of work. Most phone companies offer pretty inexpensive plans for internet now. It used to be a problem, it's not anymore. So you can get a plan like the one I have pays $20 a month. It's additional to my regular bill, but I have internet all over when I'm in Africa. I have phone service. I have all of that. So, you especially want the internet. You especially want that because a lot of the hotels or houses or places you stay, they won't have it. It's not like here. They won't have it. So you especially want to have that on your phone. So you can go, if you don't get that while you're here, you can go to a phone store there, the Vodafone store, or whatever phone store you're going to in Africa. And if, like Shakur said, if your phone carries a SIM card, then you can swap out your SIM card and put one in there and you can have internet. And it's very inexpensive. Or you can buy just a temporary phone and do it that way. You also want to pack very lightly. You won't wear a lot of clothes. You won't wear a lot of clothes, but you do need to be aware, right? And I'm not telling you what to do. Like I went to Tanzania with a woman comrade in the APRP, All African Women's Revolutionary Union, and Tanzania is a largely Islamic country. There's a lot of conservative Islamic values there. And so when we walked on the street, there was nothing inappropriate about how the comrade dressed, but it was that kind of society. So when we walked on the street, men would say stuff to her. Um, we weren't always walking together or anything like that. So men would say stuff to her on the street. And so we were going to go to Zanzibar, and people warned us like Zanzibar was even more conservative. It's an island than mainland, Tanzania. And so, I told the comrade, I'll go with you, and whatever happens, we'll deal with it. It's up to you. I mean, I'm willing to go. And comrade decided not that, didn't want to deal with it, wouldn't go. So again, I'm not telling anybody how to dress. I don't do that. But you need to be aware that that's a reality. That's one of the things that exists in Africa today. So you need to be aware of that. So if you go over there and you're a woman wearing shorts, you just need to be prepared that in some places, particularly like if you go somewhere like Ghana, some people might look at you, but nobody's going to usually say anything to you. But if you go to places like Tanzania or some of these other places, then people probably will say something. And so you just need to be prepared for that. Right. But don't take a lot of clothes. Like take some comfortable clothes. Definitely take comfortable walking shoes and light clothes. Like you won't need a big coat unless you're in certain parts of Africa, which, again, if you plan a trip and you want us to talk to you, we can pretty much tell you that kind of stuff. But do that. And you want to have an international electricity adapter. The electrical outlets there are not the same as they are in the US or Europe or Canada. So you want to make sure you have one that can plug your phone, your laptop into the outlets there. And these international adapters, again, they used to be very difficult to gain hold of. Now you can get them everywhere. You can go to REI and get them. You can order them online. They're very easy to get. It's a lot easier to go home than it used to be. Trust me, I've been doing it for 35 years. It's a lot easier now. Um, you want to take bug spray, not because any bugs are going to kill you, just because at dawn and dusk, in a lot of the places, there are a lot of mosquitoes, and then it just keeps them from bothering you, right? Like I said, comfortable walking shoes. A currency converter app is very helpful, but you should try to study that before you get there. Don't wait till you get there to try to figure out the currency um, conversion. Try to figure that out. Like at least figure out what $1 equals in the local currency where you're going. It'll make your trip a lot easier if you do that. You want to take the malaria pills if you're going to a place, and if you're going somewhere other than Azania or Zimbabwe, it's really recommended that you take the pills. You don't want to get malaria. I got it once. It is not fun. I thought I was going to die. So you want to take those. You can get them here with your whoever you have for medical care here. Excuse me, allergic to capitalism, or wherever you live. But you can get them in the pharmacy stores anywhere in Africa too, just over the counter. Excuse me, you don't need a prescription over there, so you can get them and have them there, and it's cheaper. A lot of people just do that. They just wait till they get there. First thing they do is go to the store, get them, and take them, and they have them. And in terms of flights, not going to say a ton about that because of the time limits we have, but you can get cheap flights. Don't think that, oh, I don't have $1,000, $1,500. I can't go to Africa. Yes, you can. You just have to know how to plan it. And for that, I would ask you just reach out to us and we can help you do that. I've gone to Africa on $500, so, and I live on the west coast of the US. I'm not in New York. So you can do that. So you just have to plan. Like Kwame Ture said, organization decides everything. And then this last picture is in 2015. I was interviewed on Ghanaian TV in Accra with our sister from our party chapter there in Accra, and we were talking about Pan-Africanism. And this station there, the main TV station in Accra, Ghana, was developed by Miss Shirley Graham Du Bois, who was, of course, active in Ghana, an advisor to Kwame Nkrumah, a friend of Secretary, the person that introduced Kwame Ture to Kwame Nkrumah, and of course, the wife of W.B. Du Bois. So she founded that 1964. She founded that 60 years ago. That's crazy. I mean, a woman founded that television station. It's still the main station in Ghana today. So going to Africa will answer a lot of critical questions for you that you've always had that you never understood. You know, I'm talking about questions about like how you carry yourself, the way you talk, the movements you make, the way that you look at things, your philosophical foundation. A lot of that will be answered when you go to Africa because there the way you do things is common. Whereas here you're looked at, well, why do you talk? Why are you loud? Why are you do that? They don't, this is a foreign land for us. I know we were born here. It's still foreign in terms of these people that run it and their values and their inexplicable exploitation and desire to repress anything that's different from them. You will never understand yourself if you just stay here. That's why it's so important to go. And otherwise I've learned things without even talking about it. Just on the street, I'd see the Africans on the public transportation urging people to get on the transportation, and they move and sound and their cadence is just like what you hear in rap songs here. So it's our culture. The drum, it's our culture, it's who we are. Our experiences in the West are designed to completely disconnect us from who we are politically, culturally, and spiritually. And examples of this are illustrated in African environments, in Africa, the Caribbean, etc., because you learn quickly. It's like Miss Fannie Lou Hamer when she went to Guinea in 1964. She came back and she told the young Stokely Carmichael before he became Kwame Ture. She told him they stand just like us, Stokely. They talk just like us. They hold their babies just like us. Shakura knows this because when we were in Senegal, we would drive up and park, and there'd be old men sitting on the stoop, just like here. They'd be talking trash. They'd be talking in French or Wolof, but they'd be talking trash. And we knew they were talking trash. We would say stuff to them. We knew they were talking trash because of the mannerisms are the same. Even though the language is different, the mannerisms are the same. They're the same. They could have been in Oakland or South LA or Hunters Point or Oak Park or somewhere talking trash. It's the same thing. So we just have to understand. Once you get over there and you experience that, you understand that. You go to the marketplaces to buy stuff and everything's drama because that's just who we are as a people. The sister was selling the thing, and I offered her the price, and she offered me any price, my brother, any price, and I will accept. And I gave her a price, and she, my brother, please. She started crying. My brother, please give me a better price. And I'm like, you know, you wrong. And we laughed for about 15 minutes, and she gave me a good price. But we're just a drama-filled people. And I'm like, I know you know that I wasn't gonna fall for that. And she's like, I had to try. It's like that's what we do. That's who we are. That's what we do. But you gotta, again, I think it's important that you, if you're seriously consider going, or even if you want more information so you can become serious about going, then, reach out to us, and we're happy to develop these concepts more. We don't have time to do it in this show. We just wanted to introduce the concept to you. The QR code, we want to invite you back next week first, September 21st, our program next Sunday, a proper assessment of Kwame Nkrumah's work. You don't know Kwame Nkrumah, but you know all the people that he mentored: Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Maya Angelou, Patrice Lumumba, Frantz Fanon, Muhammad Ali. So join us next week so you can learn about the mentor, Kwame Nkrumah, the founder of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. The QR code in the upper left-hand corner, the red and white one, has all these APRP programs. It has the Forward Ever shop. Please go there and buy clothes, support our party's work. Hoodcommunist.org, Revolutionary Pan African blog. I have articles. I regularly contribute to them, and a lot of really good authors do as well. So check it out, please. And every Thursday here in Sacramento, we have community self defense. It's really popping. We're starting to spar. So if you want to learn how to defend yourself and your family and your community, you got to come out. Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m., 2775 Cottage Way, Unit 15. We are getting busy. So come on out. And then tomorrow night, we are doing the same program, but in person. We're not live streaming tomorrow. That's if you couldn't get there tomorrow, you should watch this today. And this is obviously being tape recorded on our YouTube page. But if you can come out tomorrow, you should, because we have more time. We'll have the ability to have discussion and answer questions, and we can do that. So come on out tomorrow, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Shakur Center, 3230 Broadway here in Sacramento. Best practices for traveling to Africa. The same but we're going to expand. We're going to be able to talk about it a lot deeper. So come out tomorrow, join the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and bring a friend tomorrow. Tell people, come out. Y'all know people, we don't know nothing about traveling nowhere. So this is a free opportunity to educate our people. How many times, those of you in the Sacramento area, do we have events like this that are free? It's not somebody trying to fleece you. I mean, I've been to Africa so many times. I'm qualified to do this. So send people out. Don't just sleep on them. I mean, if it was Beyonce, you'd be telling everybody to come out, and that has no value in your life other than the temporary high you get from hearing her sing. And she's very talented. But this is stuff that we should be doing, and it's a shame that it's like pulling teeth to get people to see this stuff is important. So tell people to come out. You'll have a good time, I guarantee you. So tomorrow night, come out and join us. APRP-intl.org. You can join the APRP. You can go there and find out how to do that. Burkina Books, the QR code at the bottom right, the black and white one. Become a monthly sponsor. Contribute as much as you can a month to our APRP work in Burkina Faso and Niger. And my book, again, ask you to buy it, to tell people to buy it, to form book clubs, a guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. It's only $8. Unfortunately, it's only available on Amazon, but 100% of the proceeds I use for anti-fascist work. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the program, I spent 7 hours yesterday posted up, making sure that ICE did not invade the Latino Family Festival yesterday. We do solidarity work. We do this for African people, indigenous people, human being people. We're trying to stop fascism. So 7 hours. And then Miss Dolores Huerta was there. If you don't know who she is, you should be ashamed of yourself. She's 94 years old. You should know. There's no reason. I mean, you know who Megan the Stallion is and Glorilla is. So you should definitely know who Miss Dolores Huerta is, and bodyguarded for her yesterday. And we needed radios, we need supplies. So the funds I get from you buying this book, and it's a great book for only $8, I use it to buy supplies to do the anti-fascist work. You're not going to do it. So support the people that are. Forward ever, backwards never. Have a great rest